Thanks for joining me on episode 1223 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Nick Kennedy, and I challenge you to invest in yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world by using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to become a good entrepreneur is key, and one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend, Scott Mader.
It's about monitoring how you use the high performer so that you can help them maintain that peak state of mind that allows them to stay at a high performance level without creating additional stress in their mind, without allowing them to fall into those lower mindsets. It's not that the external environment creates the stress.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's episode about investing in others by stewarding your time, I talk with you about how we often equate high performance with spending more time or overworking. I share how it's really about mindset, especially if you want to avoid burnout. And I also talk about why it's important to focus on using your time on the right task to avoid burnout. As we talk about stewarding your time, wouldn't it be great if you could support this podcast and do it without just taking too long? Turns out you can. All you have to do is use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon when you're ready to make a purchase via Amazon, and a small commission will come back to support the show just that quick. If you enjoy the show when you are ready to buy from Amazon, just use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon. In a lot of different jobs and careers, we end up with tight deadlines, long, maybe unpredictable hours, and other things like heavy workloads that increase our stress without really feeling like we have any control over it. We always feel like there's external factors that create all of this stress in our life. And what's more, we often think that the only way to really perform well, the only way to get ahead, the only way to succeed at any sort of career is to work more than anyone else, to put in more hours, more time, to stay later, to get there earlier, to always be the first to arrive and the last to leave. I know there was a period in my life and my career where that's truly what I believed. I believed that the only way to show and prove that I was working harder than everyone else wasn't by the results that I had, but was literally by the hours that I spent, the time I spent present. But the truth is that high performance has a lot more to do with what you do and how you do it than how long it takes you. The truth is, by finding things that you can do well and spending the time and energy to do well at them, you begin to step up and show that you are performing well. You often are working at capacity, but you're not overworking. You're not doing more than you should. And sometimes that's something that we really have to guard. The first thing to realize is rather than just external factors creating stress, a lot of what creates stress is our state of mind, our internal factors. When our state of mind is at an optimum, then we have clarity, we have focus, we remain calm. Even if stress is coming from outside, even if there's a stressful environment, we tend to have resilience and maintain productivity and performance with less stress. The truth is, we think that stress is caused by external circumstances, by our manager, by our workload, by these sorts of things. But our mind is deceptive. It plays tricks on us. The idea that the workload is the source of stress is not really true. The circumstances can't be the thing that creates the stress in your mind. Instead, it's your mind that's creating the stress. Think about it this way. Two different people in exactly the same situation can react completely different in terms of the stress that they feel and they express. We're hoodwinked because how we think isn't really able to be seen, even by ourselves sometimes. Instead, your state of mind can fluctuate based on those external things. But as you become aware of that, you can elevate your state of mind to a higher quality. And instead of the noise of the environment and the stress getting in the way, you can actually think your way through it. The idea that our mind really actually is built for our success, for maintaining well-being, for maintaining clarity. It's set up to help us do well, but we often get in the way of that through our own mind. Our mind can actually create worry and create stress that we wouldn't have otherwise felt. So some of the things that you need to pay attention to for yourself, and if you're a manager or leader of others and you have high performers on your team, you need to pay attention to this for them as well. Often, high performers are put on the hardest projects, and that's makes sense because they're the ones that are doing the hard work. But if all they ever do is the hardest work, you need to be careful also of wearing them out. If you're using your high performers to compensate for weaker team members, if they're the ones that are always cleaning up the messes and being put in to solve the problem that the weaker members created, you need to focus on either improving those weaker members' performance or even replacing them. If you ask high performers to do a lot of small little tasks that really aren't directly related to those hard projects that you're expecting them to do. In other words, you start adding little things that they can do quickly on top of the big, hard, deep work. Then all of a sudden you're adding to their time and their stress and the work that they need to do, and you're creating distraction in their mind that is more likely to lead to those low performing mindsets. You have to be aware of what all you're putting on their plate. And if it's you that's the high performer, you have to be comfortable with pushing back and saying no. High performers often want to have some direction over their life as well. So allowing them to pick and choose some things about their performance and about their job duties and about what and how they do it, or maybe even what time they come in and what time they leave can be. It's also good to create teams where the high performers can work with other high performers as well, so that they can distribute the workload between the two of them. I've seen high performing teams work before where one of them is more of a morning person and one is more of an evening person. And so they trade off the work throughout the day so that they're always at their. You have to be careful about adding all sorts of additional demands to their time, especially things that are unnecessary. It's about monitoring how you use the high performer so that you can help them maintain that peak state of mind that allows them to stay at a high performance level without creating additional stress in their mind, without allowing them to fall into those lower mindsets. It's not that the external environment creates the stress, but it often puts them in a situation where their response to it is less than ideal. And you can help them maintain that higher level of mindset by helping them be aware of how long they're working, how much they're working, and what they're doing. And make sure you use them to focus on the most important things that you need them to do without adding a bunch of extra things that distract them and pull them away. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of time, be sure to sign up for our Stewardship of Time Tips series by going to inspiredstewardship.com/time or texting 44222 time tips and that'll get you our best tips on stewarding your time. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.